Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. Jennifer Lopez just said 7 words that made everyone in the whole world stop and listen. The biggest movie star on earth walked into a courtroom, looked right at the cameras, and said something that nobody expected. Those 7 words were, "I could have saved them all." And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why these words might change everything we know about Hollywood forever. But first, hit that follow button, because what I'm about to tell you will surprise you. And stay until the very end, because I have special details that nobody else is talking about. The most famous courtroom in America had hundreds of reporters, cameras everywhere, security guards standing along the walls. And then she walked in. This was Jennifer Lopez, but not the fancy red carpet J.Lo we know. This was different. She looked real, scared and upset. The whole room became quiet. You could hear nothing because everyone knew that what was about to happen would be really important. But here's the crazy part. Nobody thought she would show up at all. The Diddy trial was already the biggest news story in the world. He was charged with serious crimes like hurting people and doing bad things for many years. But Jennifer Lopez wasn't supposed to be part of this story until she decided to talk. She walks up to the witness stand. The judge asks her to say her name. "Jennifer Lynn Lopez," she says, but her voice is shaking. The lawyer asks her first question, and that's when everything changed. "Miss Lopez, do you feel bad about dating Mr. Combs?" The courtroom held its breath. Jennifer looked down for a moment. Then she looked up straight at the jury and said the words that are now all over the internet. "I could have saved them all." The room went crazy. Reporters started typing really fast. People gasped. The judge had to hit his hammer to make everyone quiet. But Jennifer wasn't done. She was just getting started. Here's what you need to know. Jennifer Lopez and Diddy weren't just boyfriend and girlfriend in the late 90s. They were living in a world that most of us can't even imagine. Private airplanes, parties that cost millions of dollars, special rooms where only the most powerful people in music could go. But according to what Jennifer said in court, there was a scary side that nobody ever saw. She started talking about the parties. Not the ones you saw in magazines, but the other ones. The private ones with secret rooms and hidden cameras. The ones where young women would come, but some of them never seemed the same after. "I saw things," Jennifer said, and her voice sounded sad. "I saw young girls who looked scared. I saw women crying in bathrooms, but I didn't ask questions because someone told me not to." But here's where what she said gets really scary. She talked about how these parties had different parts. The public part where famous people and reporters mixed together. The VIP part where only A-list stars could go. And then there was another part, a secret part that most people didn't even know was there. There were rooms that needed special keys, Jennifer said in court. Rooms where certain people would go away for hours, and when they came back, they looked different. Broken. Wait, it gets worse. Remember the famous nightclub shooting in 1999? The one that almost ruined both their careers? Well, Jennifer just told details that nobody has ever heard before. She was there that night. She saw everything. And according to what she said, the story everyone knows isn't the whole truth. There were things happening before the shooting, she said. Things that made people angry. Things that Diddy was doing that I didn't understand back then. She talked about secret meetings in the back rooms of the club. About women being forced to do things they didn't want to do. About money being given for services that no one wanted to talk about openly. She talked about how that night started like any other party. Music, dancing, famous people everywhere. But as the night went on, she noticed something was wrong. People were arguing in quiet voices. Security was moving certain people to different areas. "I remember asking Diddy what was happening," she said. "He told me not to worry about it. He said it was just business. But I could see fear in some people's eyes." Then came the gunshots, the chaos, people running everywhere. But what Jennifer said next will shock you. She said that right after the shooting, before police came, she saw people destroying proof. Papers being burned, computer hard drives being smashed. It was like they had been getting ready for something like this, she said in court. But here's the part that will shock you the most. Jennifer said that after the nightclub thing happened, women started calling her. They wanted to tell their stories. They wanted her help. They thought that someone as famous as Jennifer Lopez could protect them. But she stayed quiet. "They called me," she said, with tears running down her face. "They wrote me letters. They begged me to speak up, but I was scared. I was young. I thought staying quiet would keep me safe." She pulled out a big stack of letters from her purse. Letters that she had kept for over 20 years. Letters from women talking about being hurt, controlled, and scared. She read from one letter during her time in court. A young singer who had met Diddy at one of his parties. The letter talked about being given drugs, being hurt, and then being threatened if she ever told anyone about it. She begged me to help her, Jennifer said. She said I was the only person who might understand what she was going through. But I was too scared to get involved. The woman who wrote that letter later killed herself. I carry that guilt every single day, Jennifer said in court. I wonder if I could have saved her if I had just been brave enough to speak up. She said names. She talked about specific women who called her over the years. Women who later became part of the case against Diddy now. Women like Cassie Ventura who suffered for years without telling anyone. Cassie called me in 2003. Jennifer said. She was crying. She said she was trapped. She talked about things that sounded exactly like what I had seen during my time with Sean. But I told her I couldn't help her. I told her to be strong and figure it out by herself. The guilt in Jennifer's voice was clear as she continued. If I had spoken up in 1999, maybe Cassie would never have gone through what she did. Maybe none of these other women would have been hurt. Jennifer's court testimony showed something even more scary. She talked about how Diddy controlled people around him in a planned way. It wasn't random, it was calculated. First, he would find people who were easy to hurt, usually young women trying to make it in the music business. These were women who had talent but no connections, no family support, no one who would miss them if they disappeared for a while. Then he would offer them opportunities, recording contracts, modeling jobs, access to special parties. He would make them feel special, chosen, like they were about to become stars. Next came separating them from everyone. He would slowly separate them from their families and friends. He would give them new phones, new apartments, new clothes. He would become their whole world. He had this way of making you feel like you owed him everything, Jennifer explained. Like without him, you were nothing. Then came the control. Rules about where they could go, who they could talk to, what they could wear. At first it seemed like he was just protecting his investment, Jennifer said. But then it became clear that it was about power. Finally, he would use threats and scary tactics to keep them quiet about anything they saw or experienced. He had files on everyone, Jennifer said in court. Photos, videos, recordings. He would remind people that he could destroy their careers with one phone call. Jennifer talked about how she watched this happen to many women during her time with Diddy. She saw promising young artists become shadows of themselves. She saw confident women become afraid to make eye contact. But she never spoke up because she was afraid of what might happen to her own career. Now, here's where things get really crazy. Jennifer didn't just share memories. She brought proof, real hard proof that she had been secretly keeping for over 2 decades. She had kept text messages from some of the victims who called her over the years. Messages where they begged for her help. Messages where they talked in detail about what was happening to them. She had photos from parties that showed things the public never saw. Photos of women looking scared, of security guards blocking certain areas, of mysterious rooms that weren't supposed to exist. Most shocking of all, she had recorded phone calls. Not just any phone calls, but calls where Diddy talked about controlling people and keeping them quiet. I started recording our phone calls after the nightclub shooting, Jennifer explained. Something in my gut told me I might need proof someday. The prosecution played these recordings in court, and let me tell you, they were absolutely scary. In one recording, Diddy could be heard talking about how to handle difficult women who don't know how to keep their mouth shut. In another, he talked about moving money around to pay for cleanup after parties. But perhaps the most chilling recording was one where Diddy talked about Jennifer herself. She's smart, he said in the recording. Too smart, but she knows what's good for her. She won't talk. When this recording was played in court, Jennifer broke down completely. That's when I realized, she said through tears, that I was never really his girlfriend. I was just another person he was controlling. Of course, Diddy's lawyers didn't just sit there. They fought back hard against Jennifer's testimony. They said that she was a woman who was angry at her ex-boyfriend and was making up stories to get revenge. They pointed out that she had stayed quiet for over 20 years. So why should anyone believe her now? They asked why she kept proof for so long without coming forward. They said she was only testifying now because it would help her own career and public image. Miss Lopez has a new movie coming out next month, one of Diddy's lawyers said. This testimony is nothing more than a publicity stunt. But here's what they couldn't explain away. All those other victims whose stories matched exactly what Jennifer was saying. The defense tried to make Jennifer look unreliable. But when victim after victim took the stand and told nearly identical stories, it became impossible to dismiss. The pattern was too clear. too consistent. When news of Jennifer's testimony came out, something incredible happened. Women started coming forward, in record numbers. Victims who had been too scared to speak up suddenly found their courage. They saw that even someone as powerful as Jennifer Lopez had been afraid, and that gave them permission to share their own stories. The prosecution's case, which was already strong, became absolutely bulletproof. Social media went absolutely crazy. #J.Lo testimony started trending worldwide within minutes. News channels canceled their regular shows to cover the story live. But here's what was really interesting. The reaction wasn't what you might expect. Instead of attacking Jennifer for staying quiet for so long, most people praised her for finally speaking up. Survivors of abuse shared their own stories of staying quiet out of fear. People started conversations about how hard it is to speak. Truth to power. The hashtag "I could have saved them all" became a rallying cry for anyone who had ever stayed silent about abuse or wrongdoing. Jennifer's testimony didn't just affect the Diddy case. It started a whole new wave of reckonings in Hollywood. Other celebrities started sharing their own stories about staying silent when they saw wrongdoing. Music executives began distancing themselves from artists with questionable pasts. Record labels started implementing new policies to protect young artists from exploitation. It was like Jennifer's courage gave everyone else permission to finally tell the truth. But speaking up came with a price for Jennifer. In follow-up interviews, she talked about how hard it was emotionally to relive those memories. She talked about nightmares that kept her awake for weeks after her testimony, panic attacks when she heard certain songs from that time, the fear that speaking up would somehow put her own family in danger. "I had to hire extra security for my children," she said, "because you never know how desperate people might get when their secrets are exposed." She talked about the guilt she had carried for decades, the weight of knowing that her silence might have allowed other women to be hurt. "I've lived with this guilt every single day for 20 years, she said. "Every time I read about another victim, I wondered if I could have prevented it." The day Jennifer finished her testimony was unlike anything anyone had ever seen in a courtroom. When she stepped down from the witness stand, the entire gallery erupted in applause. The judge had to bang his hammer repeatedly to restore order. Victims in the courtroom were crying. Some were hugging each other. For the first time in the trial, it felt like justice might actually be possible. But the drama wasn't over. In the days following Jennifer's testimony, the entire case shifted. What had been seen as a difficult prosecution suddenly looked winnable. Diddy's legal team scrambled to respond. They filed motions trying to get Jennifer's testimony thrown out. They argued that the recorded conversations were obtained illegally. They claimed that Jennifer had violated attorney-client privilege by recording private conversations, but the damage was done. The jury had heard everything. The world had heard everything. Here's why Jennifer Lopez's testimony matters beyond just this one case. It's about the culture of silence that protects powerful people and hurts vulnerable ones. For decades, people in Hollywood have known about abuse and exploitation, but they stayed quiet because speaking up could hurt their careers. Jennifer's testimony showed that even the biggest stars in the world can be afraid to speak truth to power. But it also showed that when they finally do speak up, it can change everything. As I'm making this video, the trial is still going on. We don't know yet what the final decision will be, but we already know that Jennifer's testimony has changed things forever. New laws are being proposed to better protect victims. The music industry is implementing new safeguards, and most importantly, survivors everywhere are finding their voices. Jennifer Lopez proved that it's never too late to do the right thing. That speaking up even decades later can still make a difference. Here's what I want you to remember from this story. Jennifer Lopez could have stayed quiet forever. She was rich, famous, and successful. She had everything to lose, and very little to gain by speaking up, but she chose courage over comfort. She chose truth over safety. She chose justice over silence. And because of that choice, the world is a little bit safer for vulnerable people today. The 7 words, "I could have saved them all," will be remembered as the moment when one of the world's biggest stars chose to use her voice for something bigger than herself. If you're watching this video and you've stayed quiet about something you've witnessed, Jennifer's story is for you. You don't have to be a celebrity to make a difference. Every voice matters. Every story counts. Speaking up is scary. It's risky, but sometimes it's the most important thing you can do.